I found my way home across the Grand Mirage. Ever since
Hi, it's the Alison Arngrim Show, and I'm Alison Arngrim. Although some of you may remember me as the evil Nellie Olson, tonight I am Alison Arngrim, and it is the Alison Arngrim Show. And here on the Alison Arngrim Show, we talk about things that make you feel good. The movies and the TV shows that made us feel good and the people who made them. And people who are doing things now to make the world a better and more interesting place. And we have one of those tonight. Okay, I'm so excited. You know, I often get my friends on here. I get people I actually knew and like work with and stuff. And so it's like, somebody, my friends. And I've been talking about this all day. Guess what's coming on the show? It's a Prairie reunion. Yes, I made him steal the answers from his mother's desk so we could cheat on the final exam. Andy Garvey. Yes, it's Patrick Labyorteaux, the lovely Andy Garvey from our show, as well as about 5,000 other things. Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick,
Hey, Alison, how are you?
I am fabulous. I'm excited. I am so excited that you're on my show. You're
oh
just
my
a
God,
wonderful
it's so
person.
exciting you have a show. It's great. It's awesome.
Right? This is awesome. So yeah,
basically, let's be honest though.
Yes.
You've had a show since I've known you. They just never had cameras on it.
I was always doing a show. It's just
You're
nobody was taping the darn
You
thing.
were always hosting a show.
It was like, hello, good evening. Hi. Are you on a show? No, there's nobody here. Hi. It's yes, and now finally I have a venue to do this madness in. This is so much fun. I just adore you and always have, and you're awesome, and you've done so many awesome things. Obviously, a lot of my fans and people tune in are going, "How's Andy Garvey?" Because we love you on Little House, but also you're very, very famous, particularly for Jag. Bob and I, the husband, big Jag fans. Fans. Watched it like mad, and we're like, oh, look, yeah, it's Matt. So we were like totally jazzed. You're on it. I cannot count the number of people, including adult, seemingly rational, educated people who have said, how did he lose his leg? Who were not quite clear on the whole not reality TV thing, and seriously asked me if your leg had been amputated because of the Jag thing.
Yeah, they'll go to Spider-Man and they're okay with understanding that there's, not spider people. But I get the same question, and of course you take it as a compliment to the way that excuse me. Watch this. Hey Siri, turn off the music.
Sorry, I can't do that.
Oh, she can't do that. Hold on.
Okay, that was hilarious. Suri has refused a direct command, and he has to go fix the thing. I've never
all you
heard
Def
that
Leppard fans, hopefully this
no.
won't be pulled down for Def Leppard infringement. You take it as a compliment because basically the way that they did it, they spent a lot of time making sure that it looked realistic. In fact, I put up a picture on Twitter of when I got my leg blown off. And I woke up this morning at 4:30 to the email saying that my Twitter account has been closed because I've put up disturbing battlefield images that's not allowed by Twitter. It
was like you were.
And I had to, I had to say no, it's a makeup effect, and I had to argue with them and make a whole claim and everything, and then they finally said, okay, that's fine. But yeah,
Twitter thought it was freaking real, and you have with the picture his whole explanation how they dug a hole and you stuck your leg in a hole, and then they painted you up with the fake blood so it looked like, oh no, his leg is gone. Exactly. And you're telling me that somebody at Twitter who checks me, oh, this is a terrible gory photo of this poor man on a battlefield had
to be a robot. I mean, that first flagged it, because once you look at it and you read the tweet, you kind of get the whole idea. But the whole effect was done, not only just that effect, but the other effects on the show were all kind of low fidelity. The biggest one, which they did, was imagine me standing up straight and then just bending my leg back at the knee.
Ow.
And then they shot it. They just shot it from the front angle, and it looked like it had half a leg. And I just hid my leg behind my back.
Were you doing like the cheesy old Long John Silver stuff where we just bend our knee up and tape the thing on and go, "R"? Kind of.
Absolutely. In fact, I'll probably put it on Twitter tomorrow. I've got pictures of me going to the prosthetics doctor's office where they took a cast of my knee, so that they could build a fake prosthetic that would fit on my knee when my knee was bent. And so then that was basically how we did it. And then of course we had other guys that were real amputees that would, double for me in certain scenes. Right. And, but it was pretty amazing considering how many people really believe it. And I think if I'm, and again, I'm like you, I watch TV. I love TV. I'm a big fan of TV and movies. When you're connected to a character, I think they're connected to the story part of it, not the special effects. They just don't want Bud to lose a leg. Everyone liked Bud.
Yeah, and I think it's because because the show had enough emotional content and characters, people connected to it. That's what we kept going back, let's watch Jag again, and found ourselves getting sucked in and watching this and getting involved in the characters. It was a good show. So I think people got so into it, and then yes, your character was so likable. It's like, oh, Bud, that even if by today's standards it was like cheesy special effects, people just like, if you hadn't been a good actor or the character wasn't so beloved, they probably would have gone, oh, look at the guy bending his knee in a wheelchair. But because they'd already gotten sucked in, it was like, oh my God, he lost it. But I mean, Bob and I would watch it and we'd see you in the wheelchair with like what was obviously like your leg tucked up. We'd go, that looks really good. I mean, we know he stuck his leg up, but I'll be damned if it doesn't look like he had his leg amputated. And so we watched it. It looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, but they did a good job, and to the point where CBS had to issue a statement saying that I had not lost my leg.
Okay, so really it's not just My Cuckoo Friends, because
it was a big thing. There was a big thing in TV Guide. There's a big thing when online first started where they would ask these online websites, and so CBS finally had to announce that no, Patrick Labyorteaux has both legs, and it was all makeup and stuff.
I had people call, oh my God, the guy who was on the show, he lost his leg. I'm like, oh my God, no, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Right.
And I think I talked to someone the other day. I said, you were on the show, and I said, oh yeah, he's that thing on Jag where he lost his leg. And oh, how did that happen? I was like, on the show. I said on the show. And it's, I gotta tell you, it's not like it was hot CGI state of the art.
No, I mean, I think we did one green screen or one green sock where I put a sock on it at one point, and then they were able to take it out. But my wife and I were watching a movie one time 10 years ago, and I saw an actor, and they had a prosthetic arm. They had lost their arm. And I turned around and I go, I had no idea they'd lost their arm. She goes, are you kidding me? It's a movie.
Like, dude,
you're an idiot.
You of all people. I mean,
you're an idiot.
You're the guy who sat on his leg for like a couple of years.
Exactly.
You probably should know when someone is doing
Ethan Hawke has his arm.
See, but there you go. If the actor is good and they've kind of like sucked you in, you start, oh yeah, it's really happening. Now, of course, obviously, my friends who are watching are like, oh, it's Andy Garvey. We do love you on the show. We always do this, like everyone, especially everybody has a great audition story and how they got the job. But Little House, for some reason, everyone who's on the show have like the best freaking audition stories. I mean, Charlotte Stewart, who's Miss Beadle, she came in to read for Miss Beadle and said, can I use the desk? And made, Ed Friendly and Michael get up and move and took their desk and was like, be quiet, class. And of course they were like blown away. So everybody has like these bananas auditions. You had the weird thing that practically everyone in the show had, where you were related to someone on the show, which was cuckoo. Because Michael had both his kids. He had Leslie Landon and Mike Jr. were on. Melissa Gilbert, of course, her brother Jonathan Gilbert was playing my brother Willie, and it went like on and on. Then we had 8,000 sets of twins. The baby Grace twins, baby Rose twins, baby
and then
Carrie
most
twins.
of the extras were daughters and sons of the crew.
Yeah, it's all the crew's kids. We're sitting in the schoolroom, and everyone's related. And then you and your brother Matt are both. So you have Albert and they're actually, it's completely. So everybody was related to everybody, and also practically everyone on the show was adopted, or they were in a blended family where people gotten divorced and remarried, had 8,000 stepbrothers and sisters. And I was like the only person who went, my parents, my birth parents. Oh yeah, they live with me. The only
and you were
one
also the only one that your parents never came to the set.
Like never. Once in a blue moon, my mother would go, I suppose I should come down and like visit. And then my father, who's my manager, and I should come down there and make sure everything's being done. But mostly, my Auntie Marion came. My parents were like, great,
She's a sweetheart.
go. She was so awesome. So how did you get the job? Was it because like Matt was on first, right? Because he was Albert.
Yeah, here's the and you're right. It is the best audition story in my career, bar none, period. So we'll roll back and just talk about Matt for a second. So Matt had done a TV.
He'll love that. Let's talk about Matt because he will totally love that.
Sure, of course. So back in the day in the 70s, they did these very special after-school specials where this kid would be going through a horrible thing, and you're supposed to learn about it. So my brother did one called Papa and Me about this Italian kid and his grandfather and how they loved each other, and so it was this after-school special. And Michael saw the special and fell in love with my brother and said, "This is the cutest kid I've ever seen. I want him to play me as a young man."
And
so
he was amazing because he was in Woman Under the Influence and stuff. He was in like a bunch of, what was that movie? Oh God, Circle of Children, where everybody, like everyone we know was in it, like all of our friends who were ever child that were all in this.
Todd Bridges, myself, Kyle, Richards.
It was a convention of everybody with their child actors.
Katie Kurtzman was also in that thing. It was just, everybody.
He did all of those like dramatic wounded child films of that.
Absolutely.
And so Michael was like, "Oh my God."
So Michael wrote an episode where it goes back to how Paul. It was about Paul running away and becoming a man because Paul was going back to meet his father, and so Matthew played Charles in flashback. And then that went well, so he wrote another episode where Paul meets Ma. And so they did that. That was
episode. Adorable. And it's Katie Kurtzman again, isn't it? As Ma. It's like, ooh,
Katie Kurtzman as Ma. And so I don't remember the exact years, but that was the episode with the last episode my brother did was the year before I auditioned. So we'd had experiences with Little House, but I'd never been to the set. I was a big fan of the show, and this is how this week broke down. Okay. Monday, the episode, The Race aired. And so I watched The Race, right? Buddy in the Race.
My favorites, of course.
Yeah. It was a great episode for you. So I watched The Race. I'm like, oh my God. And again, not that the people that are watching this watched Little House, and if they're old enough, they watched it when it was on. But basically, for those of you who aren't old enough, there's like only 3 networks, and there was only a couple of shows with kids on them. And this was one of the only shows that had kids at all, and there was a lot of them. So it was a big show to watch as a kid. So I
speak for child actors because there was enough volume that a lot of people got their start. I mean, look, Jason Bateman got a start on Little House on the Prairie. I mean, it was that kind of show.
Yeah, exactly. And so I watched it on a Monday. Thursday morning, I get a call from my agent saying, "Hey, they want you to come to Paramount and read for a part on Little House on the Prairie after school." So I go, okay. So my mom drives me down to Paramount. I auditioned for Susie Suckman, and they say, "Okay, hold on a second. We want you to read for Michael. So can you wait for a second?" And we're like, "Yeah, of course." They go, "Okay, let's go read for Michael." And they put us in a car. And they didn't really tell us what they were doing. And then they drove us to Simi Valley.
They kidnap you. Wait, so this is not normal stuff. Do you go to an audition? Maybe at an audition they say, "If you have time, can you wait? We'd like to go ahead and have you read for producer," and they're here. Okay. Right. They kidnap you and take you. It's like an hour. It's like out the 118.
Yeah. It's not down the road.
No, it's really far. It's like, and you have to go through Santa Susana Pass where like the Manson family lived. It's like scary to go to Simi Valley.
It was like going back in time because they have a freeway there now, but they were building the freeway. You couldn't get on the freeway and go all the way there. Yeah, so we drive out there,
6 lanes to nowhere.
Then you get to Simi Valley, which is Big Sky Ranch, and you park with all the other cars and you think you're there. And then they put you in another van. And then that van takes about 20 minutes to go up into the mountains to finally get to where the shooting is happening. And so they finally get us to all of the trailers and everything. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, we're here." Looks like nothing. It's just a bunch of hills and dirt, and it's hot as heck. And so I'm like, "Okay, when are we going to read?" And I guess we're reading for Michael. And we walk down that hill behind the wood, the wheel, the water
the mill.
Wheel,
when you go down the mill,
the mill. When we walk down the mill, exactly. So suddenly, all of a sudden, there's Walnut Grove. First time I've seen it, and I'm like, "Holy man, this is amazing!" And then there's the big tree in the middle of Walnut Grove, and there's Michael Landon looking just like Michael Landon. There wasn't a moment that he never looked like Michael Landon, right? He always looked like Pa with his big boots. His shirt was half open. You know, he was sunning, and he was just hysterical. And
so
just,
much hair.
Yeah, perfect. So I guess there's about 5 of us. I go and I read. And then, you know, they bring one kid forward, they bring the other kid forward, then they bring me forward, and then they bring another kid. And so we're basically just hanging out by the mill. And then he gathers everybody by the tree and he goes, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I know it was a long trip. Thanks for it. But, you know, we're needing to do this quickly. So thank you all very much. Have a nice night. We'll let you know as soon as we know. And so everyone starts walking away, and Michael grabs my shoulder and he goes, you stay here. I'm like, oh.
Okay, that's totally insane
because I'm not the brightest guy in the world. I'm like, this sounds good. Right? It's like, of course it is.
That never happens. They do audition, and the fact that they dragged a bunch of people out to location is completely abnormal. And then, everybody go home now, right? No, wait.
Right.
And physically, grabs you. It's like,
right. So I've watched the race on Monday. I got the call for an audition that morning. After school, I auditioned. Then I met Michael Landon and auditioned, and now everyone's walking away, and he looks at me and he goes, you got the part, kid. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And by that time, my brother had been driven over from home by my dad to meet us so that we could have a ride home. And, you know, Michael and Matthew reconnect, and everyone's happy, and they go off to wardrobe. So I went off to wardrobe, and I worked the next morning. The very next morning was my first day of work. So as you know, as an actor, you're never, you know, it's like, it can be weeks, it can be months. It's a mystery. You're dying of anticipation. What's going to happen? The morning I got the audition, the afternoon I auditioned for it. The next morning I'm working with Melissa Gilbert, Half Pint, the star of the show. And we're in a barn running from wolves. And it's like, I put it up on Twitter. It's like I was like the super fan of ever. I was just asking her every single question. Like I was half the time I'm acting with her, the other half of the time I'm like a fan. And she was great. And when I met you, you were great. You were like just not nothing stopped you. It would be like you were in the middle of a I think I said this about you were. It's like walking into the middle of a conversation with you, and that's how we met. And you were telling me all about pink flamingos.
Yes, and of course, Melissa and the younger kids are like, they wanted, all the kids said, you need to take us, we'll have a slumber party, and you'll take us to the New Art Theater at midnight to see Charlotte in Eraserhead or go see Pink Flamingos. And I'm like, no, that's never, no, I'm not doing that. You're out of your little minds. But yeah, it was, and I remember you were just so sweet and innocent. It was like, and then like suddenly mad as Albert, they go to town, and
then basically after that, so that was the one final part of this whole story is, so I'm working on the set, and it was like lunch that day that I found out that Andy Garvey was going to be coming back. I thought this was for an episode. You just thought you were like there for the episode. Yeah. And then one thing I wanted to ask you, which I've heard, but I never knew. I heard later that there was another person had been cast as Andy, and that it was a recast, and that's why it happened so fast. Do you know anything about that? I don't. It's entirely possible because they would do that. But also, Michael did do stuff like that. Things were really like, you hear nowadays about people having to go for network approval and the suits. Yeah. That did happen occasionally on Little House. And I think in later years, I think like Stan, Ivar, and Pamela Lance had to go. But early on, Michael, he was given some leeway, and then he would take leeway. It's like, wait, they don't have network approval. Too late, I hired them. He would just do stuff. When I read, and I don't know how many girls were there for Nellie, and I read, and they went bananas. And now Paramount, which is close to West Hollywood, we got in the car and went from Paramount to our place in West Hollywood, like 28 minutes or something. And the phone had already rung, and my dad's partner, Jess, was on the phone. It was my agent calling. So the door shut behind me, and they called my agent. And so by the time we got in the door, it was, your wardrobe fitting is Tuesday. You're hired. It's done. They'd already had a conversation. My agent had already cut a deal, and I had wardrobe like a couple days later. And then within days, I was on the set. I mean, the speed with which it happened was like that.
Because he didn't care. Because people say, well, do we need to have her come in and do it? And no, we're done. I've decided that. And that, but it also, because the Garvey thing was, remember, because it was all about the Edwards.
Right.
And then Victor French went to do Carter Country. And then so he and Michael were kind of had a falling out because he went, why are you leaving me for Carter Country? So it's like, wait, I have to have another family. And then they wanted Merlin Olsen, the football player, on the show because we'll get all the guys who watch the football. We'll maybe flip over occasionally. And so this was all happening at lightning speed that they had to do something because Victor was gone. So he may have just said, well, chop, chop, get me another family. Can you get these boys over here? It was like that.
Give me a fresh family.
Yeah, just to order me up a family. So he would do that. And yeah, Michael wouldn't think it was weird. It's like, well, have them come read for me, but you're in see me. Well, bring them over here.
Like, and look, I was on his side because unlike a lot of TV people, the guy was directing, writing, and producing the show. And when I say writing, you know it, but other people may not. He's writing it on a legal pad in a car on the way to work.
Okay,
and so it's like the guy didn't stop working. I caught him in the dressing room with the legal pad and the pencil, and I was like, "They're writing this now. Oh, are we shooting that in a week?" Right. Yeah. No, the guy was supremely talented. He obviously, with his history with Bonanza, there was a weird moment when, speaking of JAG and Little House, when JAG started shooting, we first 4 years were shot at Paramount, and remember where Sleepy or Mankato, the big Western town that was from Bonanza? Winoka, right, with the hotel. Right. And that was because we were shooting we shot all in Little House of Paramount, so we moved to MGM. But Winoka was on Paramount. It wasn't in CNE. That was on Paramount, It was on Paramount. And when we shot JAG, by the time we'd shot JAG, they'd torn down the Western town. Oh. And it was a parking lot. It was literally, tore down Paradise to build a parking lot. That's so they tore down the Western town. Paramount, that's where the Winoka Hotel was. Oh my God, it's all coming back. And so it's a parking lot, but it's also the beginning of their big water tank. So on one of the episodes of JAG with, D. Wallace Stone was playing a senator. And in one of these big episodes, she meets us on this ship, and they built this big battleship in the parking lot at Paramount. And I just remember going, wow, what kind of life is it where as a kid I played here in the 1870s and now I'm landing on a battleship in the middle of, Hollywood at the same physical location. It was crazy. The B tank at Paramount's a trip. You can sort of see it still when you go by because it's weird because it has that big wall that's like the side of what it's blue like a sky, and this sloped lot which they throw parties in, put in some tables, have an event, use it as part. But they fill it up with water, so it's like 3 feet deep at the deepest point or something. But all those underwater shots are battleships and things. I think like when Laura's toe got bit by a crab, that was like in the B tank. So we were the tank. The B tank was used for everything. Everything. So bizarre. It was pretty. It was an amazing a place to be for us kids for sure. Because you spent so much time at Paramount. How many of the 8 bazillion shows that you've done were at Paramount? Did you live in Paramount practically? Pretty much, yeah. It was. We did. Of course, we did Little House there, and then we shot the first 3 years of JAG there, and then they moved us out to Valencia, where we had our own stages. And then after that, when my wife and I created See Dad Run, which was a sitcom for Nickelodeon, we shot on the stage 19 where the show starred Scott Baio. So they gave us the stage where he shot Happy Days. So 3 different shows have shot on the Paramount lot at 3 different times. And up until the first year of our show of See Dad Run, remember AC Lyles from Paramount, the old cowboy dude who dressed like in spats and he was impeccably dressed. Oh my God, yes. He was like the mayor of Paramount, and he had been there since literally the 30s. So so he had been there through all of these periods of time, and we got to, anyways. But it's a real homecoming type of place. And also, if you've been around, or even if you've been on the tours of the different Hollywood studios, Paramount has the singular best view of any lot ever, and it stands in front of stage 19. You stand in front of stage 19 and you look down the street, and above the stages, you can see the Hollywood sign.
It's true because it's the only ones there. Because people don't really think, oh, it's Hollywood studios. They're all in the valley. They're all out in the valley. So you see the Hollywood side, but Paramount's in Hollywood, and it's like there. Right. It's right there. It's also tiny when you think about the size of studios. Paramount's actually really small, and they jammed all that stuff in there. Now, so Little House.
It was actually two studios. It was National. Right. National and RKO, and so RKO was that other half by Gower,
and it was Desilu and the sound stages that Lucy said, yes, we're going to make Star Trek, and Star Trek was on. I think they were 9 and 10. Those became the sound stages for Little House, like 30 and 31. So yes, we're actually on the sound stages. It's completely nuts.
Well, and when Tina and I got our offices for CDAD Run, they later told us, because it would have exploded my head, that we were actually in the physical offices, that the ones that we had in the building were Gene Roddenberry's personal office.
I would have had a heart attack. Yes. Yeah. But it's so weird. We feel old now. We're like Hollywood history. So you went up a Little House, but then your brother Matt is there. Like I said, everyone's related. So what was it like to be on a show? Like I said, everyone's related to, where you're literally, your whole family's there, because your mom and dad did come to the set, and your mom was there like all the, okay, your mom, Frankie, like before the show, I said, can we do Frankie? Frankie was so amazing. Everybody loved Frankie. Frankie was hilarious and an incredible person, and your dad, Ron. But everybody was like, Frankie, oh my God, if you met Frankie Labyorteaux, Frankie was it. So they were very cool. So they're there all the time. And then Matt's there because he's Albert. And then you're Andy. So you did your whole family like hanging out on this set. What was this like?
Well, obviously what's the weird part about it is that if it was any other set, it might have been weird, but Melissa and Jonathan were there. Robin and Rachel were there. All of the people, all the kids were related to the crew. It didn't feel different, except it was the only show like that.
That's true.
Like, like what you said earlier, you were the only one there that didn't have a sibling on the show, basically. And so it was kind of, that was the norm. And that part of it was really great. Not that we're them. No, we are not the Beatles, but the Beatles, they have one quote that says, there's only 3 other guys that know what it's like to be a Beatle. And that's true. It's like they went through it together. So my brother and I, you and Melissa and Jonathan, all the kids that were on the show, they're the only ones that really know what it was like to be on Little House on the Prairie like that.
And it is. We're not the Beatles, but close sometimes, because I always said Little House has taken on a weird life of its own, as you've now, because you're now killing it on Twitter. If everyone does not know, he is on Twitter and is absolutely freaking hilarious and posting like getting photos taken down because it looks like blood. Hilarious stuff. But a lot of shows that were even enormous hits at the same time in the late 70s, like Family, it was won all the Emmys. Mm-hmm. They're not out on DVD and Blu-ray. They're not being rerun constantly on 5 different cable channels. They're not streaming on Amazon, and people are not dressing up as them, like for Halloween and for Weird West. They're not flying across the country to South Dakota to like run around in bonnets. We have this weird place that we occupy that many very popular shows at the time, people are like, oh yeah, I sort of remember that. Whereas people are watching Little House like right now. We have like new fans tuning in and people are dressing up. I said, this is sort of like being on Star Trek or in The Wizard of Oz, because you're in this weird thing that just keeps coming back at the holidays and people dress up. It's its own weird thing.
Why?
Why? I'm frightened. Why?
No, this was really interesting. I remember I was sitting at lunch, and again, I just want to share this with people because it's hard to understand. Michael ate lunch with us. When he ate lunch, he really didn't eat because he was doing 1,000 different things. But when he ate lunch, he would sit down and eat with us. He wasn't like, a big movie star that disappears into his trailer. He and Merlin shared a honey wagon. It was like you couldn't fit both of them in a honey wagon at the same time, yet basically he was showing you good etiquette or good set-etiquette. Anyway, so he was sitting down eating one day, and I was sitting with him, and he was always approachable, and we were talking. And Mork and Mindy had just premiered, and it was getting huge ratings, and they shot it at Paramount. And so we would see Robin on the set, and he was really kind to all the kids, and he would entertain us and run off to the set. And so I was telling Michael how funny Robin Williams was, and oh my God, it's going to be such a huge show, and it's just amazing. And he goes, yeah, that's great, he's talented, but no one's going to remember it. And I go, what are you talking about? And he goes, look, this show is going to be remembered in 30, 40, 50 years. Mork and Mindy's never going to be remembered. I go, you're crazy, Michael Landon. You don't know anything about TV, basically, is kind of what I said. And he goes, no, I know it is because we're dressed in the 1870s. We're not dating ourselves. There's nothing here to date us because we're already dated. The idea that we're in the 1870s, we don't have, and he said this with, a straight face. He goes, we don't have current haircuts and crazy things like that. And it's like, dude, you like set the tone for the 70s haircut. But let's pass that by.
A lot of
basically what he was saying was
the
true.
Boys with the 70s hair. We did have a lot of boys with 70s hair. But no, it was true. Because like people say, oh, yeah, I remember Melissa once going, yeah, are we ready to be nostalgia yet? It's like, dude, we were nostalgia when we started. It was the 1800s. What do you do? It doesn't date. And we Little House ran in countries that didn't want to always run American shows because it was wholesome. It was the 1800s. We're all covered. And it was weird. And it doesn't date. It's the Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch, they're in the height of like 1970, 71 fashion at that. Like, nope. We were just in our own.
Well, and and look at since there was such great love for the Brady Bunch, when they remade the series into a movies, which were great, what did they do? They played on the kitschiness of the 70s because that's what it was, so unique and so specific. And it's just I had a similar conversation with Donald Belisario, the guy that created JAG, where I told him the story about what I just told you, and he goes, I understand it because that's what's happening. That's going to happen with JAG because everyone's in military outfits. The same one that John Wayne wore in the 40s. You're wearing the same uniform. It's all uniforms, and so it's not. It's a very similar situation with JAG as well, with the DVDs and the fact that there's always going to be people in the service, and the stories of people in the service are always going to be, stories about people.
Yeah, JAG's not going away. And that was the thing. Michael also tapped in. I remember Melissa even told a story. The two of them walk. It was like near the end of the show, and they're walking around. The whole thing's ending. And he says people are going to be watching these shows long after I'm dead and gone. Long after we're all gone, they're going to be watching these shows and talking about this after we're all gone. And Melissa said at the time she thought it was absolutely out of his mind because remember there was no cable TV, there were no DVDs, there was nothing. She's like, how will they be watching this? What are you talking about? And he was like, they will be watching the show after I'm gone. And we're like, ha, let's humor the crazy. And here we all are. So yeah, he knew what he was doing, absolutely knew what he was doing, which is an amazing thing for all of us kids to have grown up with, because many kids are on shows where you don't have a mad genius walking around like that. And we got to like witness this stuff, which was incredible.
Well, and remember too, which I only could appreciate after I understood that he had been on Bonanza for 15 to 20 years. So he had already had, I mean, if you measure success by, I mean, he had already been a huge successful star long before Little House was ever thought of. And so he had learned all of that stuff prior, I think. And that's one of the reasons why I think he picked Little House over, 1,000 other scripts he could have done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Cause he was offered everything. It's like, no, I want to do this. He knew. Now, okay. I'm looking at the 10,000 pages of your filmography resume. I'm going, yeah. Wait, I didn't even know he said. Now, wait, you actually got to be in Blazing Saddles, because Blazing Saddles it was 74 when Little House started. And it was hilarious because it was like the greatest Western parody ever in the history of Earth. And pretty much everyone who was on Little House had memorized it at some point. Catherine was a big Mel Brooks fan. And so here we were doing this Western, and we used to quote it and like scream with laughter and go, oh my God, it's like Blazing Saddles. You were actually in Blazing Saddles. Who the heck did you play in Blazing Saddles?
This is one of my, I mean, I'm so excited that I had the experience. However, I think the runtime of that movie is like 92 minutes. And so I got cut out. But what they did is that I had 3 substantial bits that they were real things that we really shot, and that I was there for a month and a half on for that movie. It was at the Warner Brothers Western lot. And I played a kid in Rock Ridge. And so there were 3 scenes. One was when the bad guys came through town and were beating everybody up. They came over and they took my pet snake and they tied it in a knot. And I look at them and I go, what have they done to you, pal? And then they go off and
like genius. They cut that. That would have been great.
They cut that. And then when they're in the church looking for a new sheriff, right? They're like going, well, we're going to need a new sheriff. I raise my hand and I'm like about 9. And I go, I'll be sheriff. I want to be sheriff. And everyone's like, well, look at him. He's brave. He's big for his age. Let the kid be sheriff. And so they're all talking about letting him be sheriff. And now I'm seeing on my computer that my battery's about to die. Let me just plug in. I'm sorry. Live on the TV broadcasting.
As he plugs himself in, let's see, we've had Suri refuse a command. Now we have to plug in the computer. Technology is not our friend.
There we are.
I like when you told Suri to do, and Suri was like, no.
No, she's sassy. So, let him be sheriff. Let the little kid be sheriff. And then my mother, takes me away and says, you can't be sheriff. And then they go back to the scene where he goes, well, we're going to need somebody. And then the final scene was when Cleavon Little shows up and he does the big walk through town that first day. And, the little lady goes, up yours. And he comes across a bunch of kids beating up a little kid. And the little kid's me. And he gets everyone away. And he goes, hey, what's going on here? And I go, nothing, Sheriff. We're just playing. And he goes, what kind of game are you playing? And I go, we're playing Welcome the New Sheriff. And, a great big line. So it was a great time. Mel Brooks, every time I did a scene, would run up and down the set screaming, he's going to be a star. He's going to be a star. He's going to be a huge effing star. And at the time, I'm a little kid. I'm thinking the director likes me, not realizing what a hysterical bit, he's doing, which he was wonderful. But I loved that scene. The one scene when the sheriff walks into town and he walks up right before he takes himself hostage, there's a little kid that's down below. That's the only thing that's left, and that's me.
Okay, I am shocked that it was cut because what you're describing is freaking hilarious. But yeah, the movie was long, so what are they going to do? But I'm like jealous because I'm like, oh yeah, Blazing Saddles, love it. Was thrilled to see that you're in that. So much you do, like so much. I mean, it's just like the number of things you have done is just completely crazy. The whole summer school ski school thing. So like you were in summer school, and then it like
all the schools during the 80s, yeah,
like a franchise, and just turned into this thing. And you became famous for playing idiots at one point. Now, Andy Garvey was a lovely, smart, nice, very innocent, a naive little boy, as I manipulated you ruthlessly, as we know in that episode. And you're a good old normal kid, Jag, a really good guy. But you did have a phase, Heathers and summer school, where you played these jock moron, beefy, just thick-headed goons.
I loved it. I mean, it was so much fun.
That's like so not you. How did you do?
Well, you get probably the biggest audition character I did was either Heathers and Three Ninjas was like the biggest characters that I did. But yeah, there was a period where it was the 80s. And so you either were in horror movies, which I did one, or you did these, sex comedies, and I did one of those. And then you did these other movies. The one that was really special for me, Summer School became a big hit and it was a really good movie, but the one that I couldn't get over that I was in was Heathers. I was a fan of that script and I couldn't believe that I was in it. And so I went all out with the audition, playing the dumbest guy I could play. And sure enough, I got it. And it was great. It was great.
Now, the summer school started first, and then it was you who really kind of propelled into the multiple school movies. How did that all work out? Because like we had summer school, suddenly there's ski school in this.
Yeah, basically we did summer school, and another actor, I think Dean Cameron, and I know Richard Horvitz, and we had done summer school, and then these people out of Canada, it's always out of Canada, as your dad would tell you, that they wanted to do a ski school movie, and they'd said, well, let's just hire the people from summer school that had the word school in it. So they hired us, and we went up there. And it was really cold because it was ski school. We were skiing. And I made a joke to the director. I said, why don't we just move this down to the Bahamas and call it scuba school? And he goes, well, write me a script. And so I wrote a script. And that ended up being another movie called National Lampoon's Last Resort, which ended up starring Corey Feldman, Corey Haim. But that was supposed to be another like another school movie. But yeah, it just sort of was like a you know, at that period of time when they did those types of movies, which, man, I can't imagine them doing them now.
They were some of them were really cheesy. Some of them were really fun. I remember I called that period of the 80s. I did not work. I did Fantasy Island, Love Boat and stuff. I didn't do those films because, as I said, it was a time period where if you were a blonde, blue-eyed girl, like I was, you had to be either a cheerleader, naked, or dead, or a combination of the three. And I auditioned for some of these things, and it was just like, no.
And I totally get that. I mean, it was absolutely that way. In fact, I was just pulling some clips together for a project I'm working on, and I'm like looking at this going, how did they get away with this? And I guess it was just the times. But again, you know, I would say that you made the right call, definitely.
And some of them, it was like I look like the bimbo, and then I'd open my mouth, and they go, no, go home, please, just leave. Your fabulous name, Labyorteaux, it is French originally, yes?
Well,
or maybe. Do we know?
Because people in Paris, they look at me like, what are you trying to do with this fake French name? It was apparently it's some sort of Cajun variant.
That makes sense, because it's not really spelled really French, but it makes sense. Yes, it's a very, very Louisiana kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It's like alligators and gumbo and some beer, and they came up with Labyorteaux. So yeah. And then of course I'm adopted, so I'm not even French. So
right. So then, but now at one point, you and your brother, for some bizarre, you spelled your names differently. Did you go? I am so confused. Was it spelled one way once, and then you both spelled it differently, and then if you've gone back to spelling it the same? I am completely confused, because I remember one day people said, you know, they spelled their names differently, and I went, I have no idea what's going on. Why? What? It's hard enough to spell as it is, but that's like changing it up.
So when you're welcome to Hollywood, back in the day, there was Dorothy Day Otis Agency, which was like the big commercial agent.
God,
you remember?
Flashback, Dorothy Day Otis. Yes, she had all the children.
Right, she had all the kids, and then we also had another agent called Iris Burton, who was also the, like, oh God, she was like the Mack truck of kids agents. It's like you just didn't want to mess with Iris Burton or Dorothy Day Otis. And so we were lucky enough to get these agents, but Dorothy Day Otis said, this last name of yours is very confusing and hard to say, so we're going to change your name. And we said, okay. And they go, we're going to take the Y out of your name. And it's like taking a Z out of Schwarzenegger. It's like, just one letter.
Does it really help? Maybe if you change the whole thing, like you said, we're going to call you the Lance brothers. I mean, but
yeah, exactly. But no, yeah, Labyorteaux then became Labyorteaux.
Would you know something about the TEAUX? I think that would be the part that would concern me if I was going to change.
So they changed it when we first started, and then all the way up through Little House. And then after Little House, I said, look, this is kind of crazy. I hate to, like, because then it becomes really confusing, because your taxes are with one letter and the other one is your contracts are with another. And so I said, I just want to go back to having my name be my name. And I don't remember the details. I don't know if Matthew did that until later. I know he does now, but there was a time where we both had quote unquote separate names, but that's why.
That totally bonkers. But yeah, Hollywood is all about changing people's names, literally even the spelling. It was a very weird. And if you were, especially the kids' agents, were like, let's try to make it. There was also a move then, even as late as the 70s. Does your name sound ethnic? I mean, that was like a thing too. It's like,
if your name is Archibald Leach, I get maybe changing it to the Cary Grant, but you know, it would be like changing Archibald Leach to Archibald Lech. It's like, why are you doing that?
Completely what it is. All right, of the 10,000 things you've done, I'm flipping through because I'm like, I didn't even see half this crap you were in. Oh my God, what did you not do? What's your favorite thing? Is it See Dad Run? Is it the stuff you've produced and written? Is it the stuff you've been in? What would you think? Do you have a favorite?
Probably overall, See Dad Run probably was the favorite, mainly because my wife and I, Tina, came up with the idea. It was based on my experience on JAG, where the basic idea was America's #1 dad is on a TV show for 10 years, and he comes home and he's got 3 kids of his own that he's now got to raise in real life, but he raises them like he would on TV, using old scripts and episodes as his, touchstone. His wife is an actress who has been in a coma on her soap opera for 10 years. And so now she's going off to work. So it's like, it's a sitcom, and, hilarity ensues. But we took all of the stories that we could from our own lives. So the lead character basically was stories from our own life. And in fact, one of the coolest things is, if you ever get a chance to see it, it's called See Dan Run It. Was on Nick at Night. You can rent episodes. The very beginning starts off on a family watching TV, and that zooms into the TV where you see the lead character walking away from his TV show and walking home.
Nice.
The family that's watching the TV is myself, my son, and my wife, Tina. We
Nice.
open the show as ourselves. It's really kind of magical. And then just the experience of working with my wife, Tina, and having it be, something that we did together, having the name of the son be the same name as our son, having, like an issue that happened at his little league happen on the show. It was just, it was really, really cool.
That sounds
and
very
the fact
Michael
that we got it
Landon.
at Paramount.
Very Michael Landon of you.
Well, yeah. And don't think that there's not, I remember watching Michael write and direct on the set thinking, I want to do that. And I can't believe that I actually got to do it. And then I'm thinking about it the other day. I had called Linwood Boomer because he had run Malcolm in the Middle. And I said, we're going to run this show. How do you do it? And we were having this conversation. And I'm like going, what are the odds that, like, from a TV show in the 70s, that 2 other shows creators are like actors on that?
Yeah, for those who didn't guess,
I'm sure it was because of
Adam
Michael.
became the guy who created Malcolm in the Middle. Hello. Yeah,
right.
So huge. Now you have a whole acting school workshop thing, private and group classes now online. Now, of course, I have to. Didn't you have a pretend how to workshop at one time on the internet? It was the funniest thing ever. He had a thing. He created a sort of a fake how to be an actor piece by a character that was like the world's worst ex-child star screw up in the history of Earth. This character, just dumb as a box of rocks, explaining like how to go on an audition. I watched those things you did. I screamed my head off.
You were the only one, and and it was worth it if you just were laughing at it, because to me, it was called Acting Good.
Acting Good.
And the guy's name was C. Timmy Blake. And
he was so dumb. He was so dumb.
He was a star of a TV show in the 70s called That's Nuts. And now he wants to be, the huge main difference was between he and I was that he didn't have a successful acting career after That's Nuts. So it was just, but it was, dumb as a box full of rocks was a great description. And don't think that when I started this acting school, I wasn't aware of the fact that that I'm doing the thing that I had parodied. And so
you were now
the thought that went into it.
A former child star has an acting school, but it is not a school acting good for people who want to act good. It actually is a legitimate acting school where you actually teach people useful and real things. Where do we get hold of that? If people want to come and see the not stupid guy.
The real school is called workingactorsschool.com. And the basic idea is, I'm a working actor, and what we talk about and what I teach and what the whole push of the school is about is the difference between being in an actor's studio where you're protected and you're exploring characters and you're being vulnerable and you're doing all of the things that one has to do to create characters and to be a better actor. That's separate. That's respected and it's understood. Working Actors School is about, okay, now you're on set. The lighting guy says they have 20 minutes to get the shot. You have to be in your character and give the performance and know your dialogue and hit the blocking and deal with the person that you're working with on a set. And you've got to have all the practical knowledge of how to do that. And then, of course, with the COVID and everything, where everything started happening online, it occurred to me that there's so many people out there that want to have maybe their kids get into acting, or they're a child and they want to find out how to act. And I've had that experience, as have you. And I've had the experience of working as an adult actor. And then with See Dad Run, I had the opportunity to be a producer, and I ran casting sessions. And I got to tell you, the biggest acting lesson I ever learned was being a producer. And this one I'm giving away for free. Here's the big secret. As a producer, when an actor would walk in, people that I knew, people that I asked to have come in and read, they would read, and there would just be something clicking in me going, no, they're not right. And it had nothing to do with their performance. They could be great. They could have been wonderful, but it's just, you're either right for the part or you're not. And when I realized that as an actor, on the actor side of it, so much was taken off of, there's so much grief that goes into acting, wanting, oh, if I'd only done this one little thing, it would have changed everything. No, it doesn't.
It's not.
And so Working Actors School is based around the idea that you're going to be working on a set. I'm going to be giving you all the information you need to know about how all of it goes down. We have, basic, intermediate, advanced. We have workshops.
Nice.
There's also private tutoring as well. A one-on-one private if you're working on a particular part or if you're going up for an audition. And kind of like the catchphrase is, you don't have to be in Hollywood to train in Hollywood.
Okay. And it's working actor.
WorkingActorsSchool.com.
WorkingActorsSchool.com. But it's true because as an actor, I mean, that's one thing to find out. Like when you're a child actor, you might get hired or not hired because they have to match you to the family and they already cast the parents and they have dark hair. And you need to look like them. And you don't know that. You don't know that till you go, oh, I was terrible. No, you weren't terrible. You didn't match part. And people don't realize the variables in it, that there may be something they're specifically looking for, and you're just not them. You could have been brilliant. That's why sometimes you go on auditions and then you get called in for something else. But that's a Hollywood thing that, people don't know. They don't know. They think it's just all about them, and it's not. Horrifyingly, we have to wrap this up. I am going to have you back on because we could do this for 5 hours easily.
It's been fun.
I will do fun quickly. Now know where to find you. So, okay, WorkingActorsSchool.com. Yes. Go. He's brilliant. He's not the dumb guy. He is the smart guy. And, but fun. Okay. So the episode, The Cheaters.
Yes.
How
People
weird
love
was that?
episode.
I'm haranguing you because you were so good. You were total perfect straight man. You were I don't know. In terror. And I'm just and you're going to get me the answers. And you're going to do you know how I get such good grades? Because you studied. No, I cheat. And I was in your face doing it. Was that unpleasant, intimidating? Were you trying to not burst out laughing? What was that like when I was torturing you?
As a child actor, there's... my brother and I both took great pride in the fact that we were total pros in the sense of that you weren't supposed to crack a joke. You weren't supposed to, you're supposed to know your dialogue. And especially with Michael and Little House, you wanted to make sure that everything was exactly the way it was supposed to be. So as far as that goes, we always came in prepared, and I wanted to make sure that I was prepared for that. As far as working with you, it was a breeze because so many times you're working with an actor and sometimes on camera, when it's all done, their performance looks great. But in the room, what they're giving you and what it feels like doesn't feel like anything. But with you, it felt exactly... It felt like, you were attacking me. So it was real easy. And you were Nellie, for crying out loud. I mean, I know that you were nice to me off camera, but when the cameras went on and you were Nellie, I'd been watching the show for years. So it was terrifying.
Thank you. Because I remember at the time going, it's just blowing this kid back into the wall. I'm you are wonderful on Twitter. What is your Twitter handle? They need to follow you on Twitter.
P_Labyorteaux
with a Y. Labyorteaux Dukes. And so he is on Twitter. He's very funny. He's posting marvelous photos and saying very funny things. And WorkingActorsSchool.com. You are a wonderful person. You are so talented and so marvelous and just generally a really nice guy. Always did like you. And there you are. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me on. This was really, really fun. I can't believe it went so quick.
To have you back. And this is the Alison Arngrim Show, and I'm Alison Arngrim.